Good evening, it's Lilia from Heal Scotland here. And tonight I'm keeping her out of bed, but she did me this huge favour of coming on alive with me as the gorgeous Sarah. I keep still wanting to call you Sarah Woods, but Sarah Grant now, isn't it? Mrs. Yes. Sarah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and also for coming to teach at the festival. I'm delighted to have you there. So thank you for that.
Going to be good. It's going to be good. We're going to pray for good weather.
Yes, I know. Well, the Saturday was beautiful last year. The Sunday was all right. It was fine, but yeah, sunshine obviously makes everything so much nicer, especially in Argyll. But I mean, the big thing about having the festivals is the pre-midgie season. That's the only thing I'm concerned about. Yep. Because the midgies really are the rain. You can go in the marquee. The midgies, they go into the marquee with you. So
they're awful. And actually, I want to teach yoga outside around Argyll, and it's the perfect place to do it. And it's the midgies. It's not the weather. It's the midgies. You can.
That's what's nice about this time of year, because you can actually get some really nice days. Yeah, it's cold, obviously, but you know, it's still midge-free, and it's just that lovely clean air. So listen, tell me, how did you get into yoga? When did you start?
I don't know, 2010. I'm not sure. Quite a while ago, and kind of by accident. My friend was going to a class. I lived in Glasgow at the time, and she was going to a class, and I just went along. It was actually an Ashtanga class. I don't know. Ashtanga is a bit more of a high energy yoga. Let's just say quite vigorous. A lot of vinyasas, a lot of the sun salutations involved in it. And I didn't realize that's what it was. I had no, like, honestly, brand new, no idea. And you start with a chant, and it's all in Sanskrit. And every pose has, oh, here we go, typical interruption. There's always an animal. The white knight himself. Yeah, so I was kind of thrown in at the deep end, and she'd been. So I just kind of landed in this class. And then it was like, okay, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. Not realizing I was looking for anything really, but knew that, I mean, I don't know how much in depth you want me to go, but I always wanted, there was something. I wanted something. I didn't know what it was. I just wanted something to kind of like have some guidance, or I don't know, explain something. I didn't know what it was. And then I found yoga, and it was almost like having something to like pour myself into. Do you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
Oh, and then you're like, okay, here we go. And then you start digging, and layers come off, and then before you know it, you're hooked. And that was the end of that. And then I did teacher trainings and zap on a few years, and here I am.
Well, Ashtanga I loved Ashtanga. It was always my favourite because, like you, I'd done, you know, different bits of yoga over the years, but just it's like that. This is boring and sore. And then I found Ashtanga, and I was like, no, this is the one for me. I just absolutely loved it. And I think the breath work as well for me was really, that was when I really started, the first time that I was like, wow, the breath can take me to where I want to go. And I think obviously we understand the science. Well, I certainly do understand the science a lot more now than I did when I was actually doing it. But, you know, in terms of, you know, everything, all the good stuff it does to your body.
Yes, it's fun, isn't it? Yeah, sorry.
No, that kind of connection, you know, and how, you know, especially when you're down in when you're doing your sun salutes, and you're really using the breath, and you just feel yourself kind of melting on it. And it's just brilliant. It's so good for stress. It's so good for strength. I know. And do you know how I got into it? I was in Kathmandu, and this guy walked in, and he was a friend of mine, and I looked at him and I was like, oh my God, he was like, he just something about him, and I was like, what do you? He said, it's not gym physique. He said, I said, but it's a physique. And he said, it's Ashtanga yoga. And he said, oh, I'll take you for a class tomorrow. He took me through the full 2 hours. And I honestly couldn't walk for about a month after it. And I was stubborn. I was only like, I was only 40 at the time, so I was still pretty strong and egotistical. There was no way I was like backing down. My two pals, they left after 5 minutes, and I was there with him. And I was watching the way he was breathing, and I thought, he's gone away. he's doing something that I've never experienced. And I thought, whatever he's getting, that's what I want to get.
Yeah,
And when I
yeah.
went to Canada, I started practicing, and that's when I got really into. So it's interesting that Ashtanga got you as well.
Yeah, but what was interesting was when I went to do my first teacher training, I'd only ever really done Ashtanga. I didn't really realize, I never thought about it that there was other things, because
Yes.
anyone who doesn't know Ashtanga, it's the same series, it's the same, system. You can go to an Ashtanga class anywhere in the world and it's exactly the same series, it should be. And you can do it in different ways, but the sequence is exactly the same.
Yes.
I didn't really think there was other poses. I mean, I just never thought about it. So when I went to some other like flow classes, I was a bit like, they're doing it wrong. Like, where's all the jumping and breathing? I didn't really understand. So it took a while. So it kind of, yeah, it was a bit of a revelation for me when I did my first teacher training, and I realized that there's all these different ways. And then I was like, oh, there's more. Like, there's more on this iceberg. You think you see all of it, and actually you find all this amazing stuff underneath. And then you get into the spiritual side, and then it's just
Yeah.
massive.
I discovered somebody actually that comes into the salon said to me, "You should try yin."
Yeah.
And when I was in Peru, name dropping all the countries I've been in here, I went to and I did yin, and and for my personality, which was Ashtanga, high impact aerobics, yin was just like the total opposite of that.
Yeah.
But I found myself really, and they covered you, they put you into pose, and they covered you in big warm blankets,
A wee nap.
and yeah, and you just lay there, and how good you felt after
Yeah.
it. So,
Yeah, but isn't it funny? I mean, I think maybe yin was maybe my first experience of that, or proper experience of the monkey mind. Because in Ashtanga, your monkey mind or your ego is saying, do it. And you're like, yeah, okay. Like you go through the sequence and it's totally fine. Then you go to a yin class and they're like, don't do any of that. Just sit there. And you're like, what do you mean? So your mind's like, and I'm like you. I don't want to do yin, but that's what I need to be doing.
yeah.
Like, damn it, that's another thing about yoga. Anything you don't want to do is what you should be doing. So, the thing I love about yoga is that it isn't passive. I think people think they come to a yoga class and you'll just leave feeling all great and like it's a hippie, you feel great. It's not about feeling great. It's not about feeling picking and choosing what you're going to feel or not feel. It's about being in it wholly all the time and breathing through it,
Yeah, I think the thing that amazed me about go back to Ashtanga again, was that when I got to Canada after I'd left this guy and had my first sort of in-depth Ashtanga lesson, I said my friend was already into it, so she had the DVD, so we'd get up and we would do it. I was on a bit of a detox. It turns out I'd taken a bad reaction to the yellow fever vaccine, but I didn't realise that's what it was at the time, and I was exhausted. And I just intuitively knew that this Ashtanga was going to be part of the healing process, along with some foods and stuff. And so every single day for 6 weeks, I did that 2-hour thing. I hated it because it was winter, it was dark, it was in Whistler, and we were getting up, and I was just like, and my body was so stiff, and I was tired. But I was just like, you are doing this. You have to get better. You have to get better. And then, as you know, I've been a fitness instructor since I was like 19. I have never seen such a physical change in my body.
Yeah.
Like no equipment, a mat, no space hardly, and just your own body weight and your breath work and your mind. And you can do that. And even how I progressed and the things I could do at the end that I couldn't even dream of doing at the start.
Quite quickly, the progression is quite quick. I say that to a lot of my students. Like, it's not about that meeting the best pose you can get, but if that is your goal, you will come on quicker than you think if you're concentrating. It's not aerobics. If you're breathing and concentrating, you will come on quite quickly. But I think in Ashtanga specifically, because it's fire, the breath is fire, so your body's warm. So you do progress. And then you're like, you get a little, you shouldn't really, but you get a little, yes. I got into that pose a little, like pat on the back. Please leave.
And I think for the Western mind, and I mean, a lot of us, certainly when I was younger, I mean, I couldn't care less about my figure now. Well, that's not entirely true, but certainly not the way I used to when I was younger.
Yeah.
So all the exercise you were doing was always so that you would look better in your jeans. Whereas as you start getting into yoga, you realize, oh, right, okay, it's not even really anything to do with can
Yeah.
you sit in that pose for this time? Can you touch your toes? Can you do a headstand? You know, that's the ego again, isn't it? But there's also a part of that that's enjoyable to see yourself actually progress. You've got actual kind of like, right, okay, I'm getting better at this now. I'm putting all this time and effort in. And
Yeah.
it really was, it was a huge part of my healing journey. So tell us what you're going to be doing at the festival.
So seasonal yoga. I trained in seasonal yoga. I trained in some other types of yoga as well. But I think because it's spring and it's a healing festival, it's just going to be a spring yoga class. So what I love about seasonal yoga is many things. But when I always look for, I'm a nature thing, so I like seasonal change anyway. So when I found seasonal yoga, it was like great.
Yes.
So what I like about this, the transition into spring, and obviously we'll be well in spring by that point, is that you're like coming out. So the spring yoga class is based around lining with nature, as is seasonal yoga. But spring is about emerging out of like dormancy almost. In winter, if you're living seasonally, or if you try and aim to live seasonally at least, you are still, you're quiet, you're hibernating. It's horrible outside, especially in Scotland, so you sleep more and you just, you just contemplate all your plans and things that you're going to do. And then in spring, it's like, okay, let's emerge. Let's actually get all those plans, put them into practice. Let's wring out all the, the toxins, and it's all like twists and high energy, but keeping your roots on the ground. And I love it because you can feel it in the air. People who maybe don't pay attention to nature, when you start talking to them about seasonal yoga, they'll come to class and they're like, oh, I heard the birds and they woke me up, and it was all this energy, and then there's all these like sap rises, and they notice things that are happening in nature, and then they do them in the class, the rising up and the twist, and they're like, oh, okay, and you can see it going,
yes,
good, it's like a lovely connection. And like you say, there's no effort, it's like yoga is a mat and yourself, and nature like the dogs. Perfect timing, actually. Yeah, so it's all, it's a good alignment to have, I think. So yeah, basically the spring yoga class will be about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and you work on, what are the organs for spring?
Liver is the main one. So again, the organ that like detoxes. So they say, when you're coming into spring, pay attention to how much caffeine you're consuming. Like if you really do want to live seasonally, start consuming leafy greens and, roots and bean sprouts and kale and all that kind of stuff, and try and align in that way, and drink more water. There's lots of stuff. There's lots of layers to seasonal yoga. I mean, again, I'm very privileged in that I can align myself like that, and I live in a really natural place, and that's great. But there aren't always things you can do. You have to do what you can, of course.
I think the liver and is just such a phenomenal organ, and we do give it quite a lot of work. Certainly being Scottish and certainly being my age, I've put it through its paces. So I think it's really nice to, because that's really from the Heal Scotland perspective what we're looking at. Instead of thinking, how do I look after my liver in terms of like fresh juice or whatever, you're going, well, how can I move that's going to help it? What kind of music is going to help it? Even at one of the goddess gatherings, we're talking about the noises, like shh, so colour, sounds, like all of these things are having an interaction with the body. So I think it's really nice to bring it into your movement yoga. So that's fantastic. I hadn't really. My friend Hilary, she did the training as well, so she did a little bit with us, and I thought, God, this is a great idea, because at my nutritional healing, we used to talk about the organs and the zodiac as well, kind of with astrology, and all the stuff that's going on that's all connected that you don't understand.
It's mainly a lot of the time. I mean, seasonal yoga is based in traditional Chinese. It's traditional Chinese medicine that's been working for so long, before we discovered medicine and all the rest of it. That stuff's been working fine on its own for thousands of years. So I think it's really interesting that when we come back around to these concepts, it's like it's there for the taking, and it's been there the whole time, and it's just trying to get it. I mean, I'm always saying to my students, that phrase you use, like, keep the kilt on it. Like, keep it simple. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to understand the entire Chinese medicinal system or theory or concepts, or even live to it by a T to get on board. You can have little bits of it. You can just change your diet a little bit, or get less sleep or more sleep, or whatever it is you need. So I like that you can pick and choose little bits, because you can't do everything.
No, well, that's the thing. And I think that's always the overwhelm, isn't it? It's like, especially, obviously I work with people that are usually pretty ill, and then they're always worried that they're not doing enough. But really what we want to be doing is getting into prevention mode and just doing a few things that are really going to help and assist the body. So that's fantastic. So you're going to be on the Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. And I think most people, somebody's asking to bring a yoga mat. If you've got one, please bring it, because we will not have enough for everyone. So if you have a mat, then please bring it. We will have some. And so the Marquee in Tarbert, that's where all the kind of big movement events, if you like, the Qigong, the dancing, the sound bath, things that need no chairs and a lot of space. So at 8 o'clock in the morning, the actual only event that will be on will be the yoga there. And then all the rest of the events start at 10, because I know, and me included, I'll be there. I like to
wake up
first thing in the morning, and so that's perfect. So listen, I'll let you go and get your pajamas on.
I've actually got them on. I love that. I value my sleep, and I'm not quite out of winter yet, so I'm allowed to have more sleep. But I go to bed really early. But I like getting up early at the same time. So.
Me too. I absolutely agree. And the kids, the new rule is there's no devices from 8 o'clock. So we've been playing Twister the last couple of nights.
I don't know if we've got more adrenaline.
It's funny because it's teaching them to hold positions, and then to stretch, and to lose. It's quite interesting. And then
when you think about it, isn't it? It's kids yoga. Maybe I should take it to class.
it's there's definitely, I'm like, oh right, okay. I've got to do it as well though, and it's good for me. So it's been interesting. I thought there's definitely, and obviously I am still quite strong, much as I don't do nearly as much as, but I'm good at going into these poses. And I think because I lived in Malta and I was always sitting on the ground and always had your legs crossed. I don't do it as much here, but I can definitely see, right, you need to be sitting on the floor more and doing these poses just naturally.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? If you have like I was saying to the students tonight, like if you have a stressful day in work, a lot of tension is stored in the hips, and you can't sit as well as you want to if you're relaxed. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
No, don't worry about it. Raya's heads up. She's like,
they're silent at this time of night until I don't need to. If you're having a stressful day, you're all tense and you actually can't sit as well, can you? And then it's just amazing. Even little things like stress in your day can put your whole body posture off, and sitting on the floor becomes uncomfortable. It's strange, isn't it? Fascinating.
It's fascinating. Anyway, I'll let you go now, because we could talk all night about the body and the wonder of it. And so, we'll see you. I'll talk to Craig as well, because I think it's a lovely idea that you guys do that together. And then I'll see if I can rope him into doing something else as well.
I'll work on him as well.
And my friend plays is it the dabla? Call it that drum? Indian drum. So I thought it would be really nice if she could play along with him. But anyway, I'll talk to him about that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
All right,
thanks a million. Sweet dreams. Sleep well. I'll see you really soon.